Hey everyone, this is Raven. I'm back with my recap and review of Penny Dreadful season number 1, episode number 5, which is titled Children of the Sun. Now, if I'm not wrong, the first season only has 10 episodes, so we are already at the midpoint mark. So only 5 more episodes left for this season, and I really hope it gets renewed for a second season. Anyway, the episode opens up with Elsa going to this bar, and she's looking around for someone. And we find out that she's making eye contact with this man. We don't know who he is, and she invites him over, and he's like, "Would you like to dance with me?" And Elsa is like, "No. What you really want is that you want to take me home." And the guy is like, "Yeah, I want to do that." And Elsa is like, "You want to take me home, and you're going to hurt me." And the guy is like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, you can see that Magda has a whole lot of power when it comes to persuading others to do her work. So the episode then shifts to Matteo, and as we all know, Matteo ended up killing Reilly in the previous episode. So of course he feels regret about it, and he is looking at his hands, and he's like, "I killed him with these hands," the sounds that he was making and all of that regretful stuff. And then Rio comes in, and Rio is like, "Matteo, you're a warrior, you're a hero, you don't necessarily have to worry about killing Reilly." And yeah, the wig feels weird on Rio, but anyway. So she basically tells Matteo that it's time for him to purge. He needs to purge his previous identity, including his old guards. And then she ends up stripping Matteo, and Rio begins miring Matteo. I think she is going to make him a suit. And a zoot. I guess they were called zoots, right? I'm not really sure. But anyway, while she's taking the measurements, she's talking about the Aztec guards and how the Spanish people came in, and then the Aztec community ended up merging into the European community and all of that stuff. And yeah, it was a weird storyline. I couldn't really understand it. What Rio was was trying to say. At first I was like, is Rio telling Matteo, is this a hint that Magda is supposed to be some sort of Aztec god? You know what, I'm not really sure. Like, even currently, we aren't really sure who Magda is. I'm not really sure when she was formed, which religion she basically belongs to, and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this show giving Magda a storyline or a backstory that I can actually understand about where Magda came from. While this scene was happening, I knew that there was a chance that Matteo was going to kiss Rio, and yes, that happens. They end up kissing each other, and they end up sleeping with each other, which, okay. And then while that's happening, we see that Tiago and Sister Molly is, they're hooking up together as well. And Molly ends up seeing the scar on Tiago's chest. And still not really sure how I feel about Sister Molly as a character. I don't necessarily trust her. And Tiago shouldn't be doing everything that he's doing with her, especially because she's a murder suspect. But what can you do? So after Matteo and Rio hooked up, Rico comes in, and I just knew it. I just knew what this show was going to do. And yep, Rico ends up joining Matteo and Rio in bed. So yeah, we have 3 queer characters. There's Townsend, and then there's these 3. So Penny Dreadful season 1 already has given us 4 queer characters. So after Tiago and Molly have hooked up, they end up having a heart-to-heart with each other. And Molly understands that Tiago doesn't necessarily like her mother. And she ends up telling Tiago that even though her mother is kind of problematic, she has always looked out for Molly. And then there's this story where Molly was like, when I was young, I was only 10 years old, and we were in Florida, and then a storm came, and then these men helped us keep warm. And while Molly was telling Tiago the story, I just could sense that there were some things that Molly was hiding, and we'll get to that down in the episode when she is talking to Josefina. And then the conversation goes to Tiago's scar, and Tiago tells Molly about how he saw his father burn and he tried to save him, and that's how he got the scar. And Molly is like, Tiago, that's not a scar, that's a blessing. So, yeah, I can just tell that this scar is going to like help Tiago somehow down the line. Maybe it will protect him from someone, maybe it will protect him from Magda, who knows. So, because of Reilly being murdered in the previous episode, of course the police isn't happy, and they end up going to the Mexican community and they are rounding men up because they want to know who ended up murdering Reilly. Luis is already there. Tiago comes in, and Luis is like, Tiago, where were you? We have been trying to find you for like 24 hours. You have disappeared. And when I was watching the previous episode, I just knew it that people were going to suspect Tiago, especially because Tiago ended up threatening Reilly's life. And however, Tiago is like, Luis, I didn't do it. And of course, Luis has to believe him. And Luis also knows that, yeah, Tiago is hooking up with Sister Molly. And understandably, Luis isn't a fan of that. So basically, they decide that they need to figure out who killed Reilly before an actual war occurs. So we have a scene between Josefina and Sister Molly, and Josefina ends up telling Molly about what Reilly did to her. And Molly is very understanding about the situation, and this is where she tells the same story she told Tiago. But I think this was, yeah, in this moment she was telling the truth about, even though the men ended up helping her and her mother, they ended up sexually assaulting Molly, and yeah, it was just bad. So she basically tells Josefina that even though a whole lot of people go through this, the important thing is that you need to realize that you are not alone, and many people do come out stronger at the end. So she tells Josefina to be grateful for the body that God gave her, and that she is stronger than any man who wants to take her consent away from her. And then the scene ends with Josefina telling Molly that Tiago is her brother, and yeah, of course Molly is surprised. And then the scene changes to Molly's mom talking to Randolph, and she doesn't like Molly hooking up with Tiago, and she tells Randolph that they both know how this is going to end. So basically the show is implying that it was Randolph who ended up killing Hazlitt and his family. However, I'm not really sure. I think that the show is trying to throw viewers off course. They're trying to confuse the viewers about Randolph being a murderer. But you know what, let's just see what happens. So Luis and Tiago end up talking to Sophia, I guess that was the character's name, who was hooking up with Reilly, who was being forced to hook up with Reilly. And they want Sophia to tell the truth about who she saw, and she's like, I saw Rico there, I saw 3 other people. And this is where she ends up telling Tiago that one of the people that were in the group had a bandage on his hand, and of course Tiago knows that she's talking about Mateo. So Tiago is like, Luis, we need to go, we need to talk to Raul about Rico, and Luis is like, okay. So while that's happening, we see the kid who the Nazis want to steal all of his data from for the rocket. He's at this cafe, and Luis's friend also comes there, and she's like, kid, you need to stay away from the Nazis, and I also want you to explain to me what all of the data that you're working on and how that rocket is going to work. And the kid is like, I doubt that you will be understand what I'll be saying because it's a lot of technical stuff. And the woman is like, I learned how to wire bombs, I can take it. So while he's explaining all of his data to the woman, we see that Kurt has been keeping an eye on the kid, and he gets up, he calls Mr. Goss. He asks Mr. Goss about what he should do, and Goss is like, continue keeping an eye on the kid, and we'll figure out how to deal with the woman, and I also need you to figure out who she actually is. Tiago brings Luis to his home, and Tiago is like, Luis, I would rather that you stay inside the car. And Luis is like, Tiago, I can sense that you're hiding some stuff from me, and I'm not remaining in the car. So he gets up, he goes into the house, and this is where Tiago, Luis, and Raul talk. And While they're talking, Tiago wants to talk about something important with Raul, and he asks Luis if he would leave them alone for a bit. So Maria ends up taking Luis into her prayer corner, where she introduces him to all of her Santa Muerte stuff. And this is also where we get to learn about there are different versions of Santa Muerte. You pray to the red one for love, you pray to the black one for protection from evil, and all of that stuff. And she also appreciates Luis picking Tiago, and she tells Luis that she's very grateful that he has been keeping an eye out for her son. And before the two leave, Luis and Tiago, Maria ends up giving this little black statue of Santa Muerte to Luis because according to Maria, the statue will protect Luis. Then we go to Townsend, and Townsend is looking through these different color ties, and he's wondering if he should rather wear the red one or the blue one. And Alex is noticing a change in him. Basically, yeah, Townsend is in love with Kurt, and he asks Alex if she knows anything about Kurt, and Alex is like, Charlton, I understand that you're in love. I can understand the emotions that you're going through. However, you need to be very careful because, yeah, you being queer can be used by your opponents, and that won't be a good thing. So I would rather that I never have to listen to you asking about Kurt or any other man. Do you understand that? And there's also this line where Alex is like, think about what your father will think if he knows about who you are. And basically, yeah, this show is giving Townsend a whole lot of layers. But then again, he's queer and he's also not a nice person. So yeah, there's a whole lot of layers to his character. Tiago and Luis end up meeting this woman who, I guess her name is Bernadette, and they want to know where Rico is because she knows. And at first she's like, I'm not going to tell you anything. This is where Tiago threatens her by saying that if she doesn't cooperate with the police, he's going to deport her. And that was a very, very surprising move by Tiago. I wasn't expecting it at all. Even Luis was shocked by how Tiago ended up handling the situation. While they're outside where Rico is hiding, this is where Luis actually tells Tiago that he was very surprised with how he ended up talking to Bernadette. And he mentions Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And Luis is surprised that Tiago has so many faces, and he would like Tiago to be the good guy that he knows that he is. Over at Dr. Kraft's house, we see Dr. Kraft and his wife and the kids playing a game, and this is where the phone rings. And at first his wife is like, ignore the phone call, but Dr. Kraft is like, no, I have to take it. And it's Elsa calling Dr. Kraft about an emergency, and she wants Dr. Kraft to come and help her. So of course he has to leave, and yeah, his wife isn't happy about it. We see that Elsa is covered in blood. Dr. Kraft is wondering what happened, and it turns out that the guy who Elsa ended up bringing home, yeah, she ended up murdering him, which, yeah. We see that Charlton is a very, very rich person, and he's all alone in this big house. He plays some music and he ends up tap dancing again. And the scene where he was tap dancing, the happiness on Charlton's face, like you can, again, a whole lot of layers in this character. I wasn't even expecting Charlton Townsend to play such an important role in the narrative. I thought that he was supposed to be some sort of supporting character, but no, here he is. The bell rings and he goes to check, and it's Kurt, and he also brought some food. And yeah, I'm not really sure how to feel about this. Like, Townsend clearly is falling for Kurt. However, Kurt is using Townsend, and also Kurt is a murderer. He's a Nazi. So yeah, I don't feel any sympathy for him. It's weird. We see Elsa and Dr. Kraft burying the body of the man that Elsa killed. However, Dr. Kraft thinks that he is burying the body of Elsa's husband. And after the task is done, they end up hooking up. While Luis and Tiago are on lookout, a kid passes by on a bicycle, and Tiago senses that he is Rico's lookout, and then a chase ensues. Tiago tries to catch the boy. He is able to catch the boy, and they end up falling down the stairs twice. And I was like, Tiago, you're going to break the kid's neck. So both of them are in the building, and this is where Luis and Tiago decide that it's now or never. They need to go in and apprehend Rio, Rico, and the rest. Tiago kicks in the door and he has the gun out, but then he sees Mateo, and of course he hesitates, and this gives enough time to Rio, Mateo, Rico, and the other guy that's with them to run away. So Tiago ends up running after Mateo, while Luis ends up going after Rio and the other guy, and Rio escapes. However, Luis is able to apprehend the other guy. So he's the same guy that Reilly was beating up in the police station. So yeah, I guess Luis should be able to get some answers out of him. During Tiago's and Mateo's chase, there was the scene where Tiago ended up jumping from the fire escape onto the car, and it was a good touch. Because he's not a superpowered person, he couldn't land the jump and he ended up falling on the car. It was a nice touch. So Tiago ends up running after Mateo down the street through traffic, and they end up going into this alleyway, and there's this closed gate, and Mateo can't escape, and Mateo is like, Tiago, are you really going to kill me? Tiago is like, Mateo, did you kill Reilly? And Mateo is like, yes, I did, and I'll do it all over again. So now what, brother? Are you going to shoot another brother of yours? And we see Tiago hesitate, and at first I was like, Tiago, you can at least shoot him in the leg, right? But no, Tiago ended up telling Mateo to run, and run he did. And this is where the episode ends. As far as my opinion goes, I enjoyed this episode. We have seen this episode show Tiago continuing to be conflicted between his duty as a police person and his duty to his community. And he has been telling Luis that if push comes to shove, that he will be standing by the police. But this scene showed that no, when push came to shove, when it was time for him to arrest his own brother, he allowed him to run. So yeah, that's just not good, and I don't think Luis will be happy about it if he finds out that Tiago allowed Mateo to run. I will be doing a written review of this for the Geekery. The link to the review will be down in the comment section below as soon as the review goes up. Let me know what you thought of the episode down in the comment section below. I enjoyed it. We're at the halfway point. 5 more episodes left. Let's see what happens, and until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later.